There are about 40,000 lions in the world. What other wild animals do you know? We're sure there are enough of those all over the place. But there are a number of wild animals you don't know about, mainly because they're endangered or live in remote areas. But don't worry, we've got you covered. From the most endangered cat in the world to the coyote-looking red wolf, here are 20 wild animals that have rarely been seen. Rare albino cobra. Who would have thought that albino snakes exist? And to think it was found in someone's house. That's scary. Imagine finding a snake in your apartment. Not just anyone, but a weirdly white one. According to the Regional Wildlife and Nature Conservation Trust, this happened in Coimbatore, southern India. They found what looks to be a giant rare albino cobra. It was a rainy day. In fact, there was a rainstorm, and this 5-foot albino cobra slithered into the house. What is this snake, and why was it found in that area? It's a very rare snake breed, and its white-toned skin is caused by a genetic abnormality that results in a lack of melanin pigment in its skin. This part of the world is home to the Indian cobra, one of the 4 species responsible for most snake bites in South Asia. So, it makes sense that the albino cobra was found there, even though albino cobras are not typically found in southern India. If only the snake could explain how it found itself there, we wouldn't be so confused. Anyway, cobras avoid humans and will only attack if they feel threatened. The locals called snake experts to take the snake out, and they handled the reptile with so much care that it didn't even try to bite. Because the little white snake was on its best behavior, they let it out into a biodiverse woodland region that would serve as its new home. The next animal looks like an AI-generated image. A Amur leopard. You may think it's a regular leopard, but please look again. We introduce you to a Amur leopard, which is probably the rarest big cat in the world. It's native to the Primor region of southern Russia and northern China, and there are less than 200 of them left in the wild. And this is sad because they're beautiful creatures. The Amur leopard has thick, pale, cream-colored fur, particularly in winter. The fur, with the luscious black rings on it, is fairly soft, with long and dense hair. In the winter, its coat varies from fairly light yellow to dense yellowish red with a golden tinge or rusty reddish yellow. During summer, the fur is brighter, with a more vivid coloration pattern. Again, it's super beautiful, and you'll know how much you get if you get an up-close look at it. But not a lot of people have seen this leopard. Remember, it's rare, so the chances of you getting a close-up are quite low. But if you really want to try, here's a hint. Look around the border areas between the Russian Far East and the Northeast China, and possibly North Korea. Good luck! Sayola. Imagine what the offspring of a cow and an antelope would look like. That's exactly what the Sayola is. They're the cousins of the cattle but resemble the antelopes of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. And guess what? This animal breed was discovered only recently, in 1992 during a joint survey carried out by the Ministry of Forestry of Vietnam and WWF in North Central Vietnam. That was about 30 years ago. It's safe to say that the Sayola is a baby discovery compared to animals known since the beginning of time. Hear this. They say the Sayola is the largest known terrestrial animal in the world that's never been seen in the wild by a biologist. Somebody give this animal a Guinness World Record already. The antelope look-alike has long curving horns and well-patterned white markings on its head. It has round pupils with dark brown irises that appear orange when light is shone into them. This is one cute animal. Do you live in Laos or Vietnam? If yes, you just might run into a Sayola if you find yourself in the deep primary forest and you're lucky enough. Those are the only places where they can be found. Pika. The pika lives in the mountains, and although it's the smallest of the lagomorph group, it's one of the toughest animals in North America. They're small, cute, and herbivorous relatives of rabbits and hares that are adapted to the cold climate and high elevation boulder fields. Pikas live by the saying, "Make hay while the sun shines." In the autumn, they get hay, soft twigs, and other stores of food into their burrows to eat during the very long and cold winter. They'll collect grass, sedges, moss, forbs, and piles of wildflowers and lay them in the sun to dry up. The pika then stores all the food in its den in preparation for winter. So yeah, you could say they're great planners. Aside from that, another cool fact about pikas is that they're one of the few mammals that can live out their entire lives, which is about 7 years, in alpine terrain, the windswept no man's land above the tree line. So, when a pika tells you it prefers to be alone, believe it, because it literally lives in a place where no other mammal can venture into. Pikas are about 7 to 8 inches long, their tails are way shorter and invisible. They have big rounded ears too, which allow them to hear the warning calls of their fellow pikas if trouble arises. Not that they wouldn't hear it if their ears weren't big, because the calls are pretty high and squeaky and sound like the bleat of a lamb. Iberian lynx. The Iberian lynx is the world's most endangered cat. Like all the other animals on this list, it's extremely rare and one of the most difficult animals to find in the whole world. To top that, it lives in the wildest and most remote parts of Spain. Now, the Iberian lynx has a coat color of yellowish to reddish brown, and it's patterned with many dark brown or black spots of varying shapes and sizes. They look like their lynx species siblings and relatives. They have long legs, a short tail, a small head, and flared facial ruff. The Iberian lynx marks its territory with its urine. It also does so by scratching marks on the bark of trees, but we're fascinated with the urine method. By doing this, the lynx is saying to everyone or animal around, "This is mine, don't touch." But no matter how much the Iberian lynx protects its territory, it's still not safe. Remember when we said it's the most endangered cat in the world? It's true, they're threatened by habitat destruction and loss, road accidents, being caught in traps, and direct persecution. The conservation steps for the Iberian lynx include restoring its natural habitat, reducing unnatural causes of death, like trap and car accidents, maintaining the wild rabbit population, and releasing captive individuals. That's a big one because there have been numerous captive breeding programs established for the Iberian lynx since 2002. While it's a step toward preserving the species, it's also unhealthy for them because they're supposed to live in their natural homes. Hence, the plan to restore their habitat. Next up is a species that's never been taken away from its home, Javan rhino. Random facts about the Javan rhino. 1. Its scientific name is Rhinoceros sondicus. 2. It's about 4.6 to 5.8 feet and weighs somewhere between 1,984 to 5,071 pounds. This makes it the largest animal in the city where it's found, Java, and the second largest animal in Indonesia after the Asian elephant. 3. There are about 70 of these rhinos in the world. It's the rarest form of all rhinoceros, and that's not all. This rhino type is among the rarest of all living animal species, with only one currently known wild population. That means it's among the rarest large mammals on the planet. And guess what? There are no individuals in captivity. So, each 70 is free and has always been so, wandering about in their natural habitat, which is within a national park. Many people worry about the sustainability of the Java rhino because back in the day, before the 20th century, there was this kind of rhino from Northeast India and the Sundarbans throughout mainland Southeast Asia and on the island of Sumatra. But they're all extinct today. If their population size continues to decrease, the entire species might just disappear from the face of the earth. Okapi. If you see the okapi, you'll think it's wearing a brown and cream striped leggings. The animal's not like anything you've seen before. It's known as the forest giraffe, weighs about 440 to 660 pounds, and is the giraffe's only living relative. They kinda have the same face if you think about it, even though the okapi's body looks a lot like that of a zebra. It's native to the Ituri rainforest in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that's the only place where it can be found in the wild. The scent glands at the bottom of its hooves help the okapi to mark its territory. Its thick and oily fur helps it stay dry in the rain. Now, okapi are introverts. They enjoy their solitude in a place that's not easily penetrated. In the Ituri forest where they live, the plants grow so big and close together that hardly any sunlight makes it into the forest floor. But they love it. They're well adapted to the darkness and denseness of their surroundings. They have large ears, so they can sense predators, and apart from that, their bodies easily blend in with the shadows, making it difficult for the predators to see them. Is that cool or is that cool? So, these guys are not social animals. They don't want friends. They don't seek companionship. You could say they're loners, but this doesn't make them less cool. Not when they're one of the few mammals in the world that can lick their own ears thanks to their extra long tongues. There may be so many other amazing facts about the okapi we don't know because of their reclusive nature, making it difficult for scientists to study them. We have another puzzling animal coming up next. Aye. We bet this is the first time you've heard of this one, the aye, a strange name for an even stranger animal. It's the world's largest nocturnal primate. It's a long-fingered lemur native to Madagascar. It has rodent-like teeth that grow perpetually, and its middle finger is especially thin. Ayes are unique creatures. They're usually dark brown or black and stand out because they have a bushy tail that's even bigger than their body. They also have big eyes and enormous ears. What's remarkable is they have sharp claws on all their fingers and toes, except for their big toes, which are kind of like thumbs. These big toes help them grip onto tree branches. Now, according to the local folktale, ayes bring bad luck and death. So when anyone who sees one kills it on sight. Because of this tradition, so many of the species have died, and they're now protected by law. In fact, the name aye means I don't know because the people were too afraid to say its name. The lemur spends its night eating and traveling the forest. Sometimes it descends to the ground and explores human areas. This is how people sometimes run into it. They make nests with leaves and branches, and they sleep in these spherical nests during the day. Narwhal. Would you believe it if we told you there's a unicorn species in the sea? It's called a narwhal. It's a kind of medium-sized toothed whale that has the big tooth sticking out like a unicorn horn. They're found in the Arctic waters near Greenland, Canada, and Russia all year long. They have a long lifespan, about 50 years. One major cause of their death is suffocation after being trapped due to the formation of sea ice. Other causes of death include starvation or predation. They feed on shrimp, fish, and squid. So when these meals are unavailable, narwhals, especially the young ones, starve. They're preyed on by killer whales, walruses, polar bears, and the local Inuit hunters who often sell their skin and meat commercially. These one-of-a-kind sea animals have 2 teeth. For the males, their more prominent tooth grows into a sword-like spiral tusk up to 10 feet long. So that's the antenna-like thing you see in front of its face. The tusk tooth grows right through its upper lip until it's way up its vision. No one knows the use of this unusually long tooth, not even scientists. The general assumption is that it's used to impress the ladies during the mating season or fight against predators. The female narwhals grow tusk teeth, but they're small and nowhere those of the male narwhals. That's enough about the sea. Now let's check out a land animal. Red wolf. Somewhere between a gray wolf and a coyote, there exists an animal known as the red wolf. In fact, if you look at the red wolf for the first time, you may think it's a German shepherd. There are less than 100 of these in the wild, and another 200 living in captive breeding facilities spread across the United States. They're lean canids and often have black-tipped bushy tails. Although they're called red wolves, their coats aren't all that red. They're mostly a brown or buff color with some black along their backs. The red in their name comes from the reddish tint on their muzzle, behind their ears, and on the backs of their legs. These animals are roughly 4 feet long and stand about 26 inches tall at the shoulder. Red wolves typically weigh between 45 and 80 pounds, with males usually around 60 pounds and females around 50 pounds. They used to be much more than that, but you know, life happens. The only place you can find the red wolf is in the swamps, forests, and coastal prairies in eastern North Carolina's Albemarle Peninsula. The red wolf is friendlier than coyotes, but less friendly than gray wolves. They're like relationship birds, sticking together as a couple, and both parents care for the little ones. They find cozy places to have their babies, like tree hollows, along riverbanks, and even in old animal homes. Solitary sandpiper. The name of this bird gives away one of its more prominent qualities. We'll get to that. The term sandpiper is used to describe a bunch of small to medium-sized birds that hang out on the beach and in muddy areas when they're traveling. These birds are usually about 6 to 12 inches long. They have somewhat long beaks and legs, and they also have long, skinny wings and short tails. Their coloring is a mix of brown, buff, and black on their upper parts, which can look a bit like a messy pattern of dried grass. Underneath, they're often white or cream-colored. Solitary sandpipers like to look for food in small wetlands near fresh water, especially in places with trees. They stroll around slowly in the shallow water, and you might notice them doing a little butt bobbing sometimes. If something startles them, they'll quickly fly a short distance, make some noise, and then land again. When they land, they might keep their wings up for a moment before tucking them away. Now, to the interesting part. The name comes from the Latin word solitaria, which means alone. The solitary sandpiper lives up to its name. It's not a big fan of hanging out in groups. When it's migrating, you'll often spot it flying solo. But every now and then, you might see a few of them getting together in a good spot to grab some food. In the end, everyone needs something. Pygmy three-toed sloth. The pygmy three-toed sloth is also known as the monk or dwarf sloth. Their faces are a light color. They have dark circles around their eyes that extend to their temples. There's clay orange fur on their faces just below these dark circles. The hair on their heads and shoulders is long and fluffy, which sets them apart from the shorter hair on their faces, making it look like they're wearing a hood. Their skulls are small compared to other similar animals, and they lack certain openings in the upper part of their back of their mouth and don't have puffed up sinuses. The bony arch on their face isn't complete, and the cheekbone part extends down in a long and thin way. These sloths also have big ear holes. Like other sloths, they might not be very good at regulating their body temperature, so they could be warm sometimes and cold at other times. They're exclusively found in the red mangroves of Ilha Escudo de Verrugas, and in 2012, a population census was carried out, and there were only 79 of them left. That's a very small number if you ask us. The pygmy three-toed sloth can spend as many as 15 to 20 hours a day in trees. Remember, it is a sloth, so it moves at an extremely slow speed at just 0.24 kilometers per hour. This makes it one of the slowest animals on Earth, kind of the opposite of our next animal, African golden cat. The African golden cat is twice the size of a domestic cat and is one of the least known felids in the world. It's nothing like the domestic cat, however. This one is wild and found in the rainforests of West and Central Africa. The African golden cat's fur can be different shades, like chestnut, reddish brown, or grayish brown, even getting really dark. Some have spots on their fur, ranging from light tan to black. The bottom part of their body and the areas around their eyes, cheeks, chin, and throat are lighter, almost white. Their tail is darker on the upper side, and it can have a lot of bands, a few bands, or no bands at all, with a black tip at the end. We don't know a lot about African golden cats because they're really good at staying hidden. You can tell the African golden cat apart from other wild cats by looking at its skin. It has a special twisty patch of fur on its shoulders where the fur changes direction. They usually live alone, and they're most active during the evening or at night, but they can be seen hunting during the day if there's enough food around. These cats are good climbers, but they mostly hunt on the ground. They like to munch on tree hyrax and rodents, but they'll also go after birds, small monkeys, and even domestic chickens and livestock. Sadly, the African golden cat is endangered because of deforestation in its habitat and hunting. Stay safe out there, cats. African forest elephant. Here's another one from Africa. It's one of the 2 living species of the African elephant. It's found in tropical forests from Senegal east to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Like almost every other animal on the list, it's critically endangered. It's safe to say that the African forest elephant is an extrovert. They live in highly sociable family groups of up to 20 individuals. So that's like dad, mom, kids, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins walking about the forest together. When young bulls grow up and become old enough for romance, they move away from their family group. They might hang out with other bachelor bulls for a little while, but usually they end up being loners. Grown-up bulls only rejoin family groups when it's mating season. But you want to know the coolest quality of these elephants? They forage primarily on fruit, seeds, leaves, and tree bark. So what happens is that when elephants eat plants, the seeds from those plants travel through their digestive system and eventually come out in the elephant's poop. This usually happens in a different place, and it's nature's way of spreading seeds around. This helps to keep the forest diverse and make sure the different kinds of plants can grow in new areas. They've contributed significantly to maintaining the composition, diversity, and structure of the Guinean forest of West Africa and the Congolese rainforest. Baird's tapir. This animal looks like it's related to the elephant, but it's not. It's closer kin to the horse, donkey, zebra, and rhino. The Baird's tapir is the largest animal native to Central America. It's named after the man who traveled to Mexico in 1843 to observe the species, Spencer Fullerton Baird. It's not as rare as the other animals. There are about 3,000 of them left. They can be found in wet areas like marshes, swamps, mangrove forests, and wet tropical forests. They can also be found in drier areas like riparian woodlands, mountainous cloud forests, and deciduous forests. In Belize, where the Baird's tapir is the national animal, they call it the mountain cow. But that nickname doesn't do justice to just how fast and agile these animals can be. Baird's tapirs can zip across the land, swim in streams and rivers, and even handle steep hills without a problem. When they feel threatened, they run to the water for safety. The tapir is primarily a night owl. When the sun comes up, it heads into thick bushes to stay away from predators and the hot daytime sun. But sometimes, during the day, it might show up, perhaps to take a dip in the water or grab a bite to eat. They aren't really into claiming territory, but they love leaving their scent all over the place. They'll keep pooping around as they go about their business, whether they're munching on plants or chilling in the water. They don't run away from water like the Bengal florican does. What's that? You'll find out in a moment. Bengal florican. In 2017, research carried out showed that there were fewer than 1,000 Bengal floricans alive. The Bengal florican, a kind of bird, is split into two separate groups. One group lives in parts of India and Nepal and used to be in Bangladesh. The other group lives in Cambodia and maybe even in southern Vietnam. These birds mainly stay in one place where they breed, like around Cambodia's Tonle Sap Lake. But during the wet season, when their breeding spots get flooded, they move away from the water. The birds in India also seem to go to warmer lowland areas in the winter. They don't travel far, just a few dozen kilometers. Bengal floricans are birds that live in open grasslands with scattered bushes. They really like certain types of grass. You can often find these birds in the early mornings and evenings. The best time to see them is during their breeding season, from March to August, when most population censuses are conducted. Especially from March to May, the males are easier to spot because they put on a fancy show to attract females. The females are more camouflaged and tend to hang out in tall grass with a lot of sugarcane. Black-footed ferret. This animal is the definition of cute. Looking at the pictures, you want to hold it and pat its head. Tragically, it's one of North America's most endangered mammals. It was once believed to be extinct. Then, an isolated group of 18 black-footed ferrets were discovered. They were caught to establish a breeding colony from which all wild black-footed ferrets that exist now descend. And the animals live to have fun, especially when they're young. The little ones like to wrestle, and they'll bend their backs and hop around backwards with their mouths wide open in a dance known as the ferret dance. The black-footed ferret is a slender animal with distinctive features. It has a black outline on its paws, ears, parts of its face, and tail. Its body is long and slim, with short legs and a thin tail. It closely resembles weasels and stoats in appearance, with large ears and close-set fur. Male ferrets are around 19.7 to 21 inches long, with a tail length of 4.5 to 5 inches, while females are slightly smaller. They weigh between 1.43 to 3.09 pounds. Their fur is pale yellowish with a black mask on their face, black feet, and a dark patch on their midsection. These animals have some really unique physical characteristics. Brazilian merganser. Because of its black color, the Brazilian merganser may seem like trouble, but it's not. It's one of the 6 most threatened waterfowl in the world. There are only about 250 of the birds left in the wild, and a number are kept in captivity in Brazil. The merganser duck is slim and dark with a cool, shiny, dark green head that has a long pointy bit on top. The males usually have shorter and more beat-up looking pointy bits on their heads than the females. Their back is dark gray, and their chest is light gray, which turns whiter as it goes down to their belly. When they're flying, you can spot a white patch on their wings. They have a long, skinny, and kind of uneven black bill, and their feet and legs are red. They make their homes by clean rivers and streams with fast-flowing water and lots of plants along the banks. These birds are quite protective of their territory, which includes a big section of the river and the land nearby. Brazilian mergansers have this funny trait. They're known for sticking around in one place and not leaving. even if their homes disappear. Unfortunately, their homes are getting smaller and smaller, and that's not good news for them. Madagascar serpent eagle. Seems like it's been bad news galore in today's video. The story of this eagle is a mixture of bad and good news. The good news is that after lots of research, scientists have discovered that there are more of these eagles than they initially thought. So they're not about to disappear like they once feared. But on the other hand, these eagles only live in a small part of the forest in northeastern Madagascar. If we mess up their forest home by cutting down trees and all, these eagles will be in big trouble. Right now, they're considered endangered, which means they're still at risk. The Madagascar serpent eagle is sort of a small-sized bird of prey. It has a round tail that's pretty long and short and rounded wings. Its back is dark gray, while its belly, chest, and throat are a lighter gray, with dark stripes all over its body. This eagle has bright yellow eyes, a sharp, hooked beak, and strong claws. This bird likes to munch on all sorts of stuff, like big and small lemurs, snakes, lizards, and frogs. It's pretty good at hunting them from high spots. When it sees its meal, it swoops and grabs it with a sharp claw. It's called a serpent eagle for a reason. Numbat. Last on this list is the numbat, the official animal emblem of the Australian state of Western Australia. It's a small and unique looking creature, measuring about 14 to 18 inches long, including its tail. Has a pointy nose and a bushy tail that's as long as its body. Their color can vary from light gray to reddish brown, often with a red patch on their upper back. They always have a clear back stripe running from their nose, through the eye, to the base of their small rounded ear. You'll also notice 4 to 11 white lines on their rear end, which get fainter as they reach the middle of their back. The numbat is in danger of disappearing from the face of the earth. It used to be all over Australia, but now only 2 natural groups are left, and they live in the Diandra and Parrot woodlands in Western Australia. The problem is they're under attack from domestic cats and red foxes, which aren't native to Australia. These threats, along with losing their homes, have caused their numbers to drop. Unlike other animals, they have a flat peg in their mouth instead of teeth because they don't chew their food. One of the coolest things about the numbat is that it has a sticky tongue that allows it to pick up termites, which are the only things that it eats.